This is working? I hope it's working. My name is Adrian Thatcher, and I'm a director at Nelvana, and I've been with Nelvana for the last 20 years. Before that, I was with Walt Disney Television Animation, both in Canada, Toronto, and Sydney, Australia. So my plan today is to kind of trace my path from young artist through to director and kind of show you some images along the way and share some words of wisdom from some of the various people that I've had the pleasure of encountering in my career. So as a little kid growing up in Stony Creek, Ontario, I was lucky that my parents always made sure that there was pencils and paper laying around the house. My mom was an artist, and she always encouraged myself and my brother and sister to always pick up a pencil and draw. So that was kind of the start of it for me. I would draw more than I would play outside, and it was kind of my escape as a child. For whatever reason, we jumped around schools a lot. My parents moved a lot when I was a kid, and when I would go to a new school, I would always use art as kind of my intro or introduction to the other kids. When we were little, my brother actually introduced me to flipbook animation. He would teach me how to make a stickman, fall off a cliff, or a stickman ride a skateboard into a wall. They were always very violent flipbooks, but that was I would spend days and days and days making these flipbooks, and that sort of thing that you'd bring to school as well and show your friends, and they would be blown away that you made drawings move across the page. So I knew that I had to do something with my artistic skills, and so I would drift into the guidance counselor's room, and I would be searching for schools that had art courses or courses to do with art. It didn't matter what it was. And I remember stumbling across a Sheridan College brochure, and I remember the front cover was like a ripped cardboard box with the corrugated cardboard, and there was a stamp on it. It looked like a shipped package, and on the inside was this really, really rough character drawing. I could picture it was a heavy set lady with gray hair. It makes me wonder who actually did that drawing. It had so much life in it, and it was kind of the first time that I'd seen kind of an animation drawing come to life off of a page, and that right there inspired me just to apply to Sheridan College. It didn't matter that it was animation, illustration, screen printing. I just wanted to go to Sheridan College because to me that was the place where artists learn how to be artists. So after high school, I ended up going to Sheridan College for illustration. While in illustration, animation was having a massive boom. I think this was around 96, 95, 96. And I think the last Disney film that came out was Aladdin. Before that, Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid had come out. Animation was booming, but we weren't really feeling the effects of it yet. I know Toy Story was about to come out. Everybody was talking about that. And Maclean's magazine actually came out with an article while I was still in illustration, and this article came out about Canadians in Hollywood in animation. And the information that this article had was fantastic. It was so inspiring. I was in illustration. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with it. But this article in Maclean's told me all about, what's going on in animation and where all these talented artists were coming from. And wouldn't you know, a lot of them were coming from Sheridan College. So the article had information like what studios were hiring, and it actually had ballpark figures for what your salary might be if you went through animation. So that was enough for me to see that it seemed like more of a artistic path that would provide a career. So that was the impetus for me to say, okay, I think I'm going to put illustration on the back burner and apply to this animation class. I actually ended up failing first year animation, and I just scraped through into second year on the kind of the the recommendation of a layout location design teacher, Brian LeMay, who suggested that, yeah, let's let this kid go through. He show some potential in the layout end of things. So even though animation was having quite a boom when I was in second year at Sheridan, there was signs that studios were filling right up, and that jobs were probably going to become a little tougher to come by for our graduating class coming out. And in second year, our class went on a field trip to the Ottawa International Animation Festival. And I remember being one of two students in that second year class that kind of cobbled together a throwaway portfolio, just a little sample of my work on 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, stapled together, nothing special. And I took a stack of them to Ottawa. I remember on the very last interview day, the very last interview of the day, I boldly run up to the table that was Walt Disney Television Animation. And I had my portfolio in hand, and I said, is there any more interviews? And I was informed that no, they were done for the day. And so I kind of begged a little bit to kind of get the last interview of the day. And I was told that if I hustled over to the, I think it was the Westin Hotel or something, and went up to like the 30th floor, that the producer would see me for the last interview of the day. So I grabbed my stuff and I ran, and it was hot outside and I was pouring a sweat. And I got up to the hotel room, and I'm dripping a sweat. I'm nervous as it is. I have my little portfolio in hand, and the producer that welcomed me in, his name was Dan Rounds. He produced the first Goofy movie, and he was brought on to Walt Disney Animation Canada as a producer for pre-production for a film that was about to start production. He looked at my portfolio, and I had suggested that I'd like to have a summer job at Disney, and he gave me a pretty good piece of advice that day. And I don't know if he meant it in this way, but he basically told me that if I wanted to get ahead or get what I wanted in this industry, it was important to be relentless, to not take no for an answer. So he told me that if you phone for a job somewhere, that if the answer is no, try again and improve first and try again. And so I went away from that interview, and I think it was nearing the end of second year. He had given me his number, and I jumped on the phone, and he picked up, and I said to him, we met in Ottawa, and you gave me the advice to, if I wanted a job, to kind of be relentless about it. And so I said to him, consider this the first phone call that you're receiving from me. So I guess he liked that, and he actually called me in for, I didn't have to keep pestering him. He called me in for an interview the next week, and I ended up with a summer job at Walt Disney Animation Canada in the pre-production department, which was pretty cool. At the time, we were in pre-production on Hercules 2, direct-to-video that was never produced. It ended up getting shelved, and we ended up moving into pre-production on Peter Pan to Return to Neverland. So that was my first real production, was Peter Pan Return to Neverland. And then I showed an interest in location design development, and we had two fantastic location designers on the development crew, Ted Collier and Dermot Walsh, and they both were fantastic and kind of showed me the ropes, and kind of took it as an opportunity to kind of teach this young kid how to do this stuff. And just like layout in Sheridan, that I kind of fell in love with that area of production. So location design was kind of the first path that I went down, doing tonal designs and tonal renderings, location designs for Peter Pan. It was fantastic, as well as prop designs. And then I eventually moved into the layout department at Walt Disney Animation Canada on Little Mermaid 2. And that was kind of my first production work. Pre-production was a little, I wouldn't say more relaxed, but it was less of a schedule. Development was, do it till it's right type of thing. So, Return to Neverland or Little Mermaid 2 was kind of my first production work as a layout artist. When I was at Disney, Walt Disney Animation Canada, I got a great piece of advice. I tell people this story now and they're like, ooh, that's harsh. But when you're young and you're starting out in the industry and you kind of think you know everything, it sometimes is good to get a little bit of tough love. I remember handing in a stack of layouts for Little Mermaid. I think it was my first kind of submission. It's like, here's my first layouts for Little Mermaid, a direct-to-video Disney film. Like, I was so proud, and I brought them in and I gave them to my supervisor, and my supervisor, after taking maybe 5-minute look at them, basically told me, don't ever show me this garbage again. And yeah, I was stunned. I was shocked. I thought I knew what I was doing, but I didn't. And that was the only information I was given. It was just, don't show me this garbage again. So I took those layouts away. I remember I stayed super late and I just stared at my scenes until it kind of became clear. It's like, okay, I get it. You almost start analyzing things yourself. You start revising yourself. Someone I worked with at Disney, Dermot Walsh, he would always, he said a great artist is one that is capable of revising themselves. If when you get to the point where you could analyze your own mistakes and then improve upon them, I don't think that he meant that makes you the best, but I think he meant that will elevate you to the next level if you could revise yourself. So that's something that I've always kind of kept in my back pocket. No matter what I do, I'll redo it. No matter how good I think it is, I'll always take a shot at revising it. And sometimes I find out that I didn't need to revise it. It may have been fine the way it was. Unfortunately, the studio ended up closing its doors, and being in the layout department, as we know, layout kind of takes place fairly early on in the production process. So being done first meant that you were out the door first. So at that time, I got a call from Walt Disney Animation Australia. I jumped at the chance to head down to Australia and join that layout team for Lady and the Tramp 2, and spent 2 years down in Sydney, Australia. Worked on. It's funny when Return to Neverland actually went into production, it came down to Australia. So I worked on the pre-production side up in Toronto, and worked on the production layout side in Sydney. So that was kind of cool to be with that production from start to finish. But we also worked on Jungle Book 2, and I worked on a Tarzan and Jane sequel, a direct-to-video sequel. So that was really cool, and I really did a lot of. I think that's where I did most of my learning, was down in Australia. We had a layout supervisor, Rob St. Pierre. He was an American that had come down to Sydney to help out with the production. He was from Disney in LA, and his tutelage with regards to things like tonal rendering, I thought I knew what I was doing. He showed me that you don't know everything, kid. And he, tips and tricks that improved my skills immensely. Perspective was a massive one. I thought I knew perspective. I did not know perspective until I met Rob St. Pierre. He was able to kind of simplify, the concepts that you see a lot through animation production. And I left Australia to return to Toronto 2 years later, much better for it, ready to kind of move to the next level in my career. When I came back to Toronto, I was unemployed for a few months. And at the time, Nelvana was starting a show called Clone High. And I had a few friends that were actually working on the production, and I found out about it, and I said to Deborah, I'd love to work on Clone High. And so I think I did a test, and it was a location design test that had to be approved by the Clone High creators, Phil Lord, Chris Miller. They're a little bit famous now. So they liked my location design test, and so I came on as location design, prop design on Clone High, and that's when things kind of started moving a little quicker. I think on my next production, it was back into layout on My Dad the Rockstar. After that was more layout on Jacob Tutu. And then I was kind of, I think as a product of having, I admittedly have a short attention span. So I think I was done with layout at that point. And I was like, I got to do something else. What else is there to do? So I chased up some development work on a show called 16. At the time it was called The Mall. And so on 16, I did location development. And I also, this is the first time that I kind of dipped my toe into the color world. And so these location designs that I put together for 16, I painted them as well. So when I presented these location designs, lo and behold, I was offered. I jumped from layout location designer to art director. I was offered a position on 16 as the series art director. Now that was crazy because I'd never painted a background in my life. Not production wise anyway. I'd done stuff at home. I enjoyed, poking around on the computer, but I'd never been an art director. So, it's pretty scary when you're offered the position as an art director, and the first thing that you have to do is run home, turn on the computer, and search what does an art director do. Learn on the fly. You knew the basics of stuff, but I didn't know how to be an art director. And I think those around me probably were like, he doesn't know how to be an art director. I think I struggled through it a little bit. After that, I ended up jumping onto another series, Ruby Gloom, also as an art director. Still learning, still going around the studio and kind of picking the brains of the actual art directors, and learning kind of some of the tips and tricks of the trade. And after that, I did some development on a show called Willa's Wildlife. And for that show, I actually designed, I don't know how this happened, but I ended up designing the whole main cast of characters, and all the location style and art direction of that show. So I really dove in head first on that one. Ended up taking on another role on Willa's Wildlife, and that was one of assistant director. So in development, I did the locations and characters, and then into production, I art directed and assistant directed, and that entailed a lot of cutting of the animatics. So I ended up that was the first time I kind of got my hands on sitting in the editing suite and cutting a show. Yet another show that kind of holds a special place for me, in that I had so many my hands in so many areas of it. And it actually ended up in 2010, I ended up winning an Emmy Award, if you could believe it, for art direction. The kid who had to go home and look up on the computer and see what an art director does. So that ended up working out okay, I think. So after Willa's Wildlife, I moved on to a show called Scaredy Squirrel as art director, assistant director, AD squared as I call it. And then again, I think being a victim of a short attention span, wanted to kind of learn something else, tackle a new challenge. And so I had made the decision after Scaredy Squirrel to kind of go in and take Dan Round's advice again, and go be a pest and say, hey, I want to direct. I think it's time for a new challenge. Let me see if I could direct. So the first show that I was kind of cut my teeth on directing was The Adventures of Chuck and Friends, Chuck the Truck. And I had stepped in halfway through. I took over for another director. It was a CG show. And yeah, the learning curve was massive. I had a lot to learn. I hadn't worked in CG before. So I was taking a jump into directing and a jump into CG. So I had a lot of terminology and process to kind of digest. But it turned out well. And it didn't scare me away. So after Chuck the Truck, a new show was coming into development at the studio called Oh No, It's an Alien Invasion. Phil Ivanusik and Peter Reek, creators of League of Super Evil, had brought that to Nelvana, and they were looking for a director. And there was a bit of an interview process this time. It wasn't a matter of just being put onto a show. And I remember meeting those guys over the phone, and we kind of hit it off fairly well. And before I knew it, I was directing Oh No, It's an Alien Invasion. So after Oh No, a show was in development called Ranger Rob, brought to Nelvana by Alexander Barr. And it was a show that had a loose development applied to it. The concept was there, but there was a lot of development to be done, both on character design and location design. So I had a little piece of the development of Ranger Rob, and ended up directing the first season of Ranger Rob, which was fantastic. And I think Ranger Rob just wrapped its third season, so quite a successful show. Very proud to be a part of that one. After Ranger Rob, Nelvana partnered with Frederator Studios on the first official kind of network season of Bravest Warriors. And I'd known about Bravest Warriors because, Pendleton Ward being with his Adventure Time fame, and, Bravest Warriors was kind of a cult, had a cult following online. So it was kind of on the radar, but I'd never, in a million years think that I would be able to direct that series. And I was fortunate enough, again, through an interview process, to get selected to direct that series. So after Bravest Warriors came a show called Ollie's Pack. And Ollie's Pack was a Nickelodeon partnership with Nickelodeon UK. And those guys down there were just absolutely wonderful. Chris Rose, Elliot Palmer. And what a great experience working on that series, Ollie's Pack. So another example of I always say it's a short attention span, but I think I just have a desire to do different things, or as many different things as I can kind of get my hands on in the industry. And another one of those things is being a creator. So I think it was while I was on Scaredy Squirrel, even before that, I had pitched a couple shows to Nelvana. But while I was working on Scaredy Squirrel, I was determined to put together a pitch package and submit it and see if I could get a series picked up. And I was fortunate enough to have a series picked up for development. It was optioned. Nothing happened with it. It kind of fizzled out, died on the vine, and that was fine. It was a learning experience. Lots of learning experiences and lots of defeats. I think that's one thing I'd have to say, that if you want to have a long career in animation, you have to learn how to win gracefully and lose gracefully. And there's often a lot of losses. So I think after that series that I pitched, it ended. I pitched another series. It was loosely picked up for development. It didn't get an official option. And then I decided that I wanted to partner up with someone and pitch a show, because I had trouble being obligated to myself to put together a full package. I could do a lot of the artwork, but I wasn't the greatest writer. So during my time on Oh No, my producer Vanessa Estevez, I discovered is a very skilled writer and has a lot of talent. And we kind of got together and decided that it would be great to kind of put our heads together and one person focus on the writing and the other person focus on the art, with a lot of kind of cross-pollination and input on both ends. And we discovered that we had a good partnership creatively, so we pitched a show. And that show was also optioned by Nelvana and spent a significant amount of time in development. And it died. It ended up falling off the vine, just like the other one. Again, it stung. But, by this time, I kind of had my heart set on getting a show picked up. So a couple of years went by, and Vanessa and I partnered up again on another series. We pitched it a few years ago now, and it ended up getting picked up for development. Spent some time in development, and it actually ended up getting picked up for broadcast. So we're currently... the show that I'm working on right now is called Super Wish, that I co-created with Vanessa, and it's in production. And it's going fantastic. It's a dream come true to be directing and show running a show that I helped create. So we're working in partnership with Red Knot and DKLA, and that experience is fantastic. And that's the latest news from my world. Is I've made it from, to take a look at the path from start to finish, from a rock designer on Peter Pan, to a location designer, to an art director on 16, to an Emmy Award winner, to a series director, and now a series creator. So there you have it. That's my pathway through animation. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. Again, my name's Adrian Thatcher. I'm a director at Nelvana. I'm Polar Bear proud and helping to celebrate Nelvana's 50th anniversary this year, which is an exciting milestone for the studio, and happy to be and proud to be part of that legacy as well. So hope you've enjoyed it. And take care. I think, how do you turn this?